Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I am Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona. Do us a favor real quick. Subscribe to the YouTube channel down below. That way you'll get alerted for all of our race previews here, as we have many of them led by Dan Illman, the man here on DRF YouTube. So David, the feature race is the Noble Damsel out of Belmont on the Big A this weekend. It's going to go as race number 8. We'll see 3-year-old fillies and up traveling a mile on the turf course here, fillies and mares. I thought this was a pretty competitive group. I think for you, trying to make the morning line in here may have been a little bit difficult. It seems like it is a wide open race, and I think the pace scenario is a little bit confusing too. So nice job, my friend, just putting this together, because I would have not wanted to have to do this morning line.
Well, don't say nice job just yet, because this feels like one where I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the line that I put out. I haven't looked at all of the stakes races around the country this weekend, but this feels like it might be the most competitive of them all, because you can make a case for just about every runner in this field, and it's hard to know exactly where the public's going to land, because I've got a 7-2 favorite, a couple of co-second choices at 4-1 on the line, and I don't have a whole lot of confidence that I'm right about that.
Yeah, when we send in our selections to Lucia, we'll put in our top 4 picks. And I think you and I have one horse of similarity in here. It's that type of a race where you can make many cases for different horses in here. It was a really fun race to handicap. Let's see what Timeform US thinks as far as the pace projector. How is this race going to shape up? David, I didn't think there was going to be that much early speed either. So I would agree with them. And in races like this, I think that 1 or 2 of these horses could maybe have the plan and maybe the intent to get the front end, but I'm not really sure if there's any 1 or 2 that are really dead set on getting the lead in here.
No, I mean, you look at the 3 horses that are shown across the track on the front end, Ocean Club, Breathaway, and Saffron Moon. None of them are really confirmed front runners. Ocean Club is probably the one that has shown front running tendencies at different times in the past. Not so much recently, but she's got the tactical speed to be forward, and you'd imagine that Frankie Dettori will be aware of that, breaking from the inside. One note I will add to this pace projector is that the number 4, Edict, is not shown. There's no pace data available for her, since all of her prior races are in South America. But having watched her last couple of races, she is a speed horse. And if she breaks well, first start in the US, she's the one that you can expect to be in front.
Let's meet the field, and let's start with the number 1, Ocean Club. Was 3rd last out in the Grade 2 ladies turf sprint at Kentucky Downs, stretching back out now. So that race that she was in was at a point at Kentucky when there was really no passing. So I thought she actually ran pretty well to finish 3rd that day behind AG Bullet, who is now 4 for 4, going 6.5 furlongs on the turf. I think AG Bullet earned a 106 by her speed figure that day. So I think she's just a solid fit in this race based on the way it shapes up. She should be able to save all the ground from the inside. I'm not really sure how good she is against a competitive group like this, but I feel pretty confident, David, about the trip she'll get. Let's talk about Ocean Club.
Yeah, I just kept coming back to her as a horse that I think fits really well in this race. She got the right post position. She's got the right running style. She's got a string of speed figures that fit right in with this field. Do I really trust her to win the race and kick away from this field when the chips are down? Not completely, because when you watch some of her recent races, she's not always finishing as well as I want to see. Some of that's been due to trips on a few different occasions. And she did seem to have a little bit more gas in the tank in the late stages of that 6.5 furlong race last time at Kentucky Downs. As you said, nobody was any match for the winner, and she was making a nice run up the inside. It was a race that was completely dominated by horses moving inside, so I do want to take that into account. I think she could run well in here. I just felt like, given the post and the speed figures, maybe she would take some money, and I thought others might offer better value.
And that's really the key. You just don't want to take a too short a price on anyone in this race, because it's very competitive, and she doesn't seem like she's the type that overmatches this group, but she probably gets a really nice trip saving ground on the inside, and she may be the type who can really fall into it, and she might be that type of horse who needs that, as you were pointing out. She doesn't have all that late kick. 5 Towns, the number 2, multiple graded stakes placed, going a mile and an eighth. And now, David, her 3rd in the Grade 2 Canadian looks a lot better, because she was behind Full Count Felicia, who comes right back and wins the Grade 1 EP Taylor, beating Moira and Fev Rover and some really nice horses that day. So the form is very good, and it's just tough to knock what she's been doing recently.
Yeah, it just feels like she's a horse that's been improving with every start since coming into the Graham Motion barn. You go 3 back to that Dahlia at Laurel in April of this year, and that was a visually impressive win. I know she didn't get much of a speed figure that day, but she was sitting confidently in behind horses. Jorge Ruiz, who was riding her this day, just knew he had that field measured every step of the way, swung out at the 8th pole, and just inhaled the leaders when she was asked to go. And that looked like a weak race at the time, but the runner-up Safine has come back since then. I think she got a 76 buyer that day. She's come back since then and earned 4 buyers between 82 and 89 and recently won a stakes at Kentucky Downs. So I think that form holds up. She was on that boggy course next time in the Gallarette. And as you said, last time in the Canadian, she was never beating Full Count Felicia, but that horse came back and just ran a hole in the wind in the EP Taylor. And 5 Towns, I thought, ran pretty well, going a distance that might be a little far for her. I like her turning back to a mile, and she's another that drew a great post in this race.
You'll start to notice as we go through this field horse by horse, we're saying like positive stuff about most of them. And I think it'll come down to price about who you like, because a lot of these horses can get the job done here. One that I thought was a little bit sneaky, David, is Pocamucha, who had a big W in the slop last time out, was in a field of 4. It was in an off the turf race. So it's tough to really get a gauge off of that. But what I like about it, it was the race off the bench to shake some of the rust off. It was that fitness builder coming back off the long layoff, had not raced from December to July, returns to the turf, second start back now after the 7-month break. You know, you get back to some of those grass races last year. The one that stood out to me was the second to Lindy, who is multiple Group 1 place. That's a pretty good effort. That wouldn't be far away from competing with a group like this. So again, a horse who at the right price, I can make a case for Pocamucha having some races that stack up well here.
Yeah, she was a real tough read for me. She did kind of have that off the turf race fall into her lap last time because number one, nobody else really showed up on the dirt in there. And number two, that was an extremely fast pace for the Wilson Shoot mile distance. And the race just kind of fell into her lap and she almost had to win by that margin the way things played out. I don't love any of her turf races. I know she's got some competitive speed figures. Going back to the ones where she's been successful, I think she's gotten very good trips in a few of them. So she wasn't really for me in this spot, but I guess you could say the last race suggests that she is in top form right now.
The Argentinian bred Edict is up next. And if you watch this horse's races, she really does have some ability. She went right to the front in her most recent start. She looked like she was running really easy. She got headed in the middle of the stretch, and then she battled back, and she always looked like she was doing it pretty easily early on in the race. And then when she was asked, she responded. She is a multiple Group 1 winner. So I'm not concerned with her talent. It's more of, this is a lot to ask for her. She has not raced since December, but I'm very curious where she stacks up here, David, because I do think this horse has some ability.
I think she's pretty intriguing in here. I think a lot of people are going to dismiss her because she's trained by Dave Donk, who isn't really known for having success with these types of runners. I don't think he's had any foreign shippers if you look up his 5-year stats and formulator. But what Dave Donk does do well is get horses ready off layoffs. If you look up the stats and formulator, 6 months or more layoffs, he's 9 for 59 with a $3.62 ROI. And Dave Donk is the kind of trader that's hard to find good stats for, and that is one of them. And I agree with you. Going back to watch her races from Argentina, I got replays of the last 2, and she went right to the front each time, was able to kick on at the end, showed a grit in her last race. The runner-up Hawaiian Love has since come back to win a Group 1 in Argentina this year. And also keep in mind, she is a South American 4-year-old. So she last competed in December for 3-year-old season. That was like halfway through her 3-year-old season. You think of it as June if she were a Northern Hemisphere bred. And she might have a chance to take a big step forward from 3 to 4 now. And she's got speed at a price. I think she's one that you want to take a look at.
You see horses that have been off like this for a while in that really important part of their maturity and development. And just what you're saying, like there might just be that built-in maturity for the last 8 to 10 months. And this could be just a different, bigger, better animal than we saw last time out. And last time out when we saw her, she had some ability. The number 5 is Alluring Angel, coming off a win last time out for Chad Brown. I thought the win was pretty impressive. And when you look at her last couple starts, the form is very nice. She stayed inside. She was able to move in between horses and then kind of tip to the outside here. I thought it was a very good ride from Manny Franco. And she's on the improve. I don't really have many knocks on her. I guess my only somewhat knock would be she's not all that fast early with her running style. She's going to sit back and she wants to make one late run.
Yeah, she's definitely going to need a trip in this race, but I will say this performance impressed me because I was never the biggest fan of her early in her career for Jorge Abreu. I just didn't think that she necessarily stood out in some of those races, but I thought she took a big step forward coming off the layoff, getting into the Chad Brown barn last time. You could see in that replay, once she found daylight, she really kicked on for the wire and was getting away from that field at the end. I don't love that it took her 2 months to work out of that race. So something might have gone a little bit awry after that victory. She's now 3 months removed from that, but she's gotten 5 workouts in succession since then. Seems like she's training well for Chad Brown to enter her right back in this graded stakes race. So I think she's a major player.
Breathaway was defeated by Alluring Angel in that June 20th race. Breathaway has raced 10 times, and I would say that every time she's raced, someone has done it, David. Someone has made the pun, the take my breath away. It's just too easy with Breathaway. But all that being said, she's going to go third. She was most recently a winner after finishing second to Alluring Angel. It was at that optional 62 non-winners of 2 level. Can she step up here to the graded stakes level and be competitive with this group off of that?
I didn't think she had much of an excuse to lose to Alluring Angel 2 back. And in this race we're taking a look at, she just got such a perfect trip in victory. Another runner that we're going to talk about next, Alunda Queen, is also in this race. And Breathaway just got the jump on that foe after saving ground in the early stages. She's a horse who can make her own good trip because she's gained a little more tactical speed as she's gotten older. I just feel like her very best race maybe puts her a cut below what's going to be required to win here.
Yeah, the race 2 back to Alluring Angel was the one that maybe bothered me a little bit more because she did get a perfect trip that day, and I thought Alluring Angel was able to run by her, so I would prefer that one of the 2. Number 7, Alonda Queen, came into the U.S. in October of 2023, and then tried a couple grade 1s right off the bat. Found those foes a little too tough, David. Got some class relief at Monmouth, hooked lone speed that day. And then in the next 2 races, did have legitimate traffic trouble. She's a tough one for me because you're having to go through 5, 6, 7 races now where you're making excuses. And that's, as a handicapper, you get to a point sometimes where you say, is she the type of horse who maybe gets herself into traffic, or maybe she's not a horse with that killer instinct? I guess value really comes down to it with horses like this. If she's in that 10-1 range, she's probably playable. If she gets bet down a little bit, probably not one that you'd want to get, invested in, but she's not far off with showing up one of her better races and how it would stack up here. It's just, do you trust her to give you one of those best races?
Yeah, she's had trips. She's been against slow paces. 2 back, she was just badly sawed off in traffic in deep stretch. But she kind of puts herself in that position because she has no early speed. She doesn't get out of the gate that well. And I think those are big issues in a race that features a really murky pace scenario. So I found it tough to view her as the one that was going to get the right trip in this race.
Saffron Moon, grade 3 placed. This one has been off since November, so we're talking about a 10-month break right now. Last we saw her, she was at Churchill, finishing second or in the Cardinal. That race was a weird race. The turf course was strange at that point. The winner, Star Fortress, got a big figure that day. But before that, Saffron Moon had been doing some okay work. And the real key for me in this race, David, is just a trip standpoint. I think off the bench, this horse will probably be a little bit fresh, and I could see her putting herself in the race and hanging on for a slice and finishing underneath. I'm not sure if she's set up to win this race, but in a race that doesn't have all that much early speed, could she, give that really nice account of herself on the front end or sitting close to it? That's kind of how I'm projecting Saffron Moon. What are your thoughts on her?
Yeah, when Chad Brown has multiple entrants in a race, he usually instructs one of the jockeys to go forward, and it can be tough to figure out sometimes which one that's going to be. Saffron Moon feels like maybe the candidate to do that since she has shown good tactical speed in the past. I didn't love her one prior race on the Naira circuit when she went to Saratoga last summer and was just kind of flat after getting a pretty good trip from the second flight. I agree that race in the Cardinal kind of fell apart last time. Now she's coming off this long layoff. She did run really well when she initially switched to turf. I haven't seen her take a big step forward since then, and I have some questions coming off this long break.
Let's round out the field with Midnight Mile. She has raced 3 times most recently since coming back into the U.S. All 3 of those races have been runner-up efforts. And that last one on August the 14th, David, I was just disappointed there. She was sitting in a really nice spot. She was up close. She was second. She was heavily favored that day. She backed off just to the 2 path. she really didn't have many excuses. That just feels like a race you're kind of supposed to win there. And now she'll have to face a little bit tougher. She's drawn to the outside. So I have some mixed feelings on her. And I think with the connections with Chad Brown, she's always going to get bet a little bit. How do you think she fares Midnight Mile with this group?
Yeah, when I was initially making this morning line, I had her as the favorite, but as I went back and watched this replay, I was thinking to myself, anybody who watches the stretch run of this race is going to think twice about taking her in this spot, because I agree with everything you said. It all went her way. She had the pace in her favor. She got to the front end, and she just can't seal the deal in here. And now it's been 3 times in a row that she's been short prices in this country. She settled for second every time. She's drawn in the far outside post in this race, so it's a little tough to project her getting any kind of perfect trip in here. And she's got a little bit of talent, but I think she might have some things to overcome in this spot.
There are a couple main track onlys entered to the outside if the conditions of this race happen to change. But if not, David, let's take a look at how we have stacked them up with our selections here. You lead the way with 5 towns.
Yeah, I just felt like there were a lot of arrows pointing in her direction, from the post position to projecting her getting a good trip in this race, to just the fact that she's coming in the best form of her career off a really good effort, and I like her turning back to the 1-turn mile. So I thought she made a whole lot of sense in here. We'll see if we get 6-1. Like I said, it's hard for me to project the odds on all of the horses in this race. It's a really tough one to put together, but I will say I do have real interest in the number 4 Edict, who might be the biggest price on the board, and I would not dismiss her early speed in here.
Yeah, if you're playing a pick 4 or pick 5, and this is a race where you're spreading out a little bit, I would recommend including Edict, because as a wild card there with that speed that she's shown, and in a field like this where nobody really scares you, it's a competitive group, but there's no monsters. There's no one in here that really overwhelms you. So seeing a horse like Edict show up and run really well would not surprise me at all. I put the Tactical Ocean Club on top. I thought the 7 was an interesting price play for a horse who's had some troubled trips last time out, but you can see how competitive this race is. I go 1-7-3-8. David 2-4-5-8. Lots of differences for us in the grade 3 Noble Damsel. That's race number 8 on Saturday at Belmont at the Big A.
Hey buddy, you look like you're in need of a winner, and just remember, if you like and subscribe right over here, you can get all of the great content on DRF.com, including Race of the Day, stakes previews, and lots more, featuring me and my superb selections. Trust me, you're not going to regret it.